All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Karen Noe here with me on the show. Karen is a renowned psychic medium, author, spiritual counselor, and healer with a 2-year waiting list. And that must mean you're good, Karen. Welcome to the show. Great to have you.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. From time to time we've had mediums and people with intuitive gifts on the show. It's always so fun and interesting and exciting. And so before we dive fully in, I would like to start with my cliche opening question, which is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
To spread the beauty and love all around me.
Hmm. That seems like a good passion. I could get behind that. Um, if you would, Karen, share whatever feels relevant. I always like to start off really with understanding a bit of backstory, and sort of what led you down the path that you're on. Whatever feels relevant to share.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So yeah, you introduced me as a psychic medium, and the answer, in fact, we all are psychic mediums, and maybe we could discuss that later. It's not just what
Uh
I
huh.
could do. The best part is that I would love to empower you to do what I do because we all have these abilities.
Agreed.
But when I was a child, I was a little bit different than most people. I would dream things before they'd happen, and my father used to take me to the racetrack, and I
Mm-hmm.
picked the winning horses for him. He used
Wow.
them. But now I am an animal activist, and I don't go to the racetrack anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
that whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, God bless him, he's in his 90s and he still goes to the racetrack, but I don't go with him anymore.
Wow.
A little over 25 years ago, I was going through a difficult time in my
Mm-hmm.
life,
Mm-hmm.
and I sat at the edge of my bed and I just yelled at God and the angels, and I said, "Am I going to be okay?" And with that, I saw a light that came
Mm.
towards me from the
Wow.
other side of the room. And
Wow.
as it was coming towards me, I said, "If you're not of God, please leave." But the more I said that, the more it kept coming towards me, and eventually it enveloped me.
Mm.
And at that time, I heard an audible voice that said, "Lucia Lucina, Bella Lucia Lucina." And hopefully, there are some Italian listeners. If you don't know what it means light, little light,
Oh,
beautiful
wow.
little light. And I've since learned it was St. Francis of Assisi who's been guiding and protecting me ever since. And those who read my books, they see my that connection with my animal connection and peace on earth and all of that. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see all those connections there. But right after that experience, first of all, I've never felt so peaceful in my whole life. At that time, I felt
Wow.
like something just washed over me.
Wow.
And my life was never the same after that. Right after that, I was psychic before, but now, oh my gosh, now everything was just, I started to feel the angels and deceased loved ones. And I didn't want to do this. I didn't want people to think I was not in my right mind. I was
Right.
very
Right. Right.
shy. And it's funny, I was just in Omega last week in Rhinebeck, and it was, an auditorium room filled with people. And here's this shy person who's on stage. But any case, the whole thing is because it's not about me, it's how may I serve you, right?
Yep.
And then I started receiving messages from the angels and deceased loved ones, and the rest is history.
Wow.
And I mean, I could go in depth on that, but it started off, in the back of a hair salon. I did Reiki on people. That's energy
Mm-hmm.
healing. And as I
Mm-hmm.
was doing the Reiki, I would feel their loved ones. I will never, is it okay to keep talking?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Okay. I will never forget one of the first readings I ever did. And I'm doing Reiki on someone many years ago. And somebody was trying to come through. Remember, this is right in the beginning. Somebody named Robert, and he died in a car accident. And I didn't know whether or not to share it. And
Mm-hmm.
then he shows me a kangaroo with boxing gloves on, punching the air. Now, I'm in the United States. I don't know who's listening. And there's nobody here that box kangaroos and all that. So I didn't know whether or not to share it. And I finally did. And indeed, she got very excited. Her eyes got very big. She jumped off the table and she said, "That's my friend Robert. He died in a car accident and he boxed kangaroos in Australia."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, I guess I'm really doing this." The reason why I'm sharing this is that's the type of messages when you go to a medium, you want something very specific
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Something that they could never know, something maybe childhood dog or something like that that would stand out,
Validate. Yeah.
right? Something evidential that they know without a doubt. And then the rest is history. But then about right after Dr. Wayne Dyer passed,
Mm-hmm.
I was a huge fan of his.
Me too.
And I loved him.
Feel
And I
very
didn't,
connected to him.
yes, maybe that's why we're talking today. And maybe we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about this. Um, so I did not know him personally, but I was a huge fan of his.
Right.
Okay.
Likewise.
And I didn't know after I found out that he passed, I literally thought the world wasn't going to be the same again. I really was
Mm.
devastated. You could ask my family. I found out. I was crying. I said, "Oh my God, this is terrible." In any case, I had his daughter, one of his daughter's email in her contact information because she was on my podcast, The Angel Quest Show,
Cool.
a few weeks prior to that to talk about her book, Don't Die with the Music Still in You. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, by the way, that's an excellent book.
Mm-hmm.
A little
Mm-hmm.
plug there. And so I had her contact information. I emailed her and I said, Serena, I'm so sorry about the passing of your dad. Please know that he truly is okay and would want you to be too. Ask him to come to you in a dream and to wake you up after the dream so you remember it. Ask him to give you a sign to let you know he's with you.
Yeah.
And then it's important to be patient and wait. And the signs and the dreams will come when you least expect it. And then I signed the email. I said, I would love to send you a copy of my book because at that time, my latest book was Your Life After Their Death, A Medium's
Right.
Guide to Healing After a Loss. So it's how to heal after the loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
So Brandon, I received an email back within 5 minutes and she said she'd love a copy of my book. And I sent her the book. That was it. Scheduled to speak with my publisher in Orlando 3 weeks later about life after death. And they were going to be doing a tribute to Dr. Dyer a day before I was ready to speak.
Mm.
So I'm there in Florida and, I'm ready to go to the tribute. And they have a bus outside the hotel room going from the hotel to the conference center where the event was going to be. And in walks fellow Hay House authors as well as Wayne Dyer's family. And there's one seat available, and it happens to be next to me.
Mm.
So Serena Dyer sits next to me, and this is synchronicity at its best. We were talking
Right.
about
Right.
synchronicity before the show. So she sits there, and I say, Serena, my name is Karen Noe. I'm so sorry about your dad. She goes, oh, Karen, I got your book. Thank you so much. And we were just talking about the signs that he was giving her and a dream, that he came to her sister Sage in a dream.
Mm.
And she actually felt him hug. She felt his hairy arms. She said in the dream. And I said, that's without a doubt, that's a real visitation from him. And again, that was it. Now, again, it was a series of events. We went to the tribute. And we're ready to leave the tribute. I'm ready to go back on the bus. This is all meaningful. That's why I'm sharing it with you.
Sure. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please.
So I'm ready to go back on the bus. And as I'm going back on the bus, I see my favorite authors going on the bus, as well as Wayne Dyer's family. And I said, I am insignificant. I'm not going on this bus. I'm going to be walking back. I'm walking back to the hotel. And I just felt, oh my God, I was overwhelmed because I'm very energy sensitive and I kind of shrink. And I didn't, I said, I'm very insignificant. I'm insignificant. I started to walk. And as I'm walking is when I felt him for the first time.
Wow.
And he said, get out of your own way.
Wow.
Get out of your own way. Now, Wayne Dyer is loud, right? So I said, Wayne, is that really you?
Yeah.
I said, if it's you, you have to give me a without a doubt sign. I call them without a doubt signs.
I love that.
Right? So I continue to walk. And as I'm walking, I said, how may I serve? He used to say, if you ask the universe how you may serve, the universe
Make me
works.
an instrument of thy peace.
There you go. There's that St. Francis connection. He had the same connection.
Yep.
So I said, how may I serve? And he said, you're already serving. I said, fine. How may I serve more?
Yeah.
And I continued to walk, got back to my hotel room, and there was something very itchy inside of my shirt, and I didn't know what it was. So I reached in to grab it, and there was a sticker that had somehow attached itself to I wish I had it now. I could show you. I usually carry it with me, to the inside of my shirt. And on the sticker were the letters W-E on it. Now, The first thing I thought it was, because when I receive messages from deceased loved ones, I get the letters of their first name. So I thought Wayne, first letter, last letter of his name, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
said, oh my God, this is amazing. How did this get here? This is crazy. And then I felt him and he said, is that good enough? And I
Mm-hmm.
said, I started crying out, oh my God, that's beautiful. Little did I know it meant so much more. I'm going to make this fast because I know we
No,
have.
you know what? Actually, stories are my favorite. So,
Okay.
we can
Okay.
make it all
Cool.
one big story if you want.
Beautiful. So I said, okay, that's awesome. That's it. Went back home to New Jersey. Then I get on Facebook, Sage Dyer. Now he has 8 children as well as a wife. And yes, they were still married.
Yeah.
So in any case, I got it on Facebook. Sage contacted me, his youngest daughter, and told me about a dream that Serena was telling me about, where she hugged her dad and she felt his hairy arms. And we're going back and forth about, that's a real visitation, how exciting. And then all of a sudden he started to come through. I said, Sage, can I call you? I think your dad's here. And she said, yeah. So I called her and he said things that only she would know, very personal things. And if you get the book, We Consciousness, that I wrote about this whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
all of his children, 8 children, as well as his wife, endorse and say very, very nice things about our meetings together. And I'll
Yeah.
explain that in a minute. So, very, very long story short, eventually they booked an appointment with me several months down. And I was nervous. I started to yell at Wayne and I said, Wayne, you better come through. I've been doing this for years, but I never did an appointment for
Full
Wayne
appointment.
Dyer. Are you
Or
kidding
you're
me?
right, right, right.
Here comes that insignificance part of me. I don't know
Yep.
why I feel that way. And that's when he came through and he was so excited to talk about the afterlife and
Wow.
so excited to talk about the we consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
WE.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was on my sticker. And what
Mm.
the we consciousness is the interconnectivity of everyone and everything,
Yeah.
and how whatever we do to ourselves or another, how it affects everyone. And he told me he was going to be joining forces with a group consciousness called the We Guides.
Mm.
Similar to, I don't know if you ever read Abraham, Esther
Oh yeah.
Hicks,
Mm-hmm.
group consciousness and so forth.
Yep.
When
Yep.
he came, he said he was going to continue to come through singularly,
Mm-hmm.
singularly for
Mm-hmm.
his family and friends so that
Mm-hmm.
they know it's really him, which I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you about in a minute. And he indeed did. And then also as a group consciousness, and it would be hard to differentiate him from that group consciousness because it was it's different. It's not personal messages, it's messages for the world. In the group consciousness, it's ascended masters, angels, himself, St. Francis, all of that. And you couldn't just, like in Abraham, you can't just pick out who's in there. It's a group consciousness.
Sure.
And they were going to be giving me 33 profound truths about making the world a better place.
Hmm. Wow.
Basically that we're all one, and a oneness includes animals and
Sure.
all galaxies, everything, and we're not better than anybody else and all of that
Sure.
subject in itself. But also, let's go back a little bit. He wanted to also come through for his family so that people would know, indeed, that's him. Indeed, it's him. So it wasn't.
Yep.
So in his family, I mean, this is a whole book I wrote about. Again, it's weak consciousness, so I can't talk about it all here. But when it came down for the appointment, I'm driving to work to the appointment, and a car cuts me off, and it said Dyer 1 on it,
No way.
on the
Wow.
license plate. So I'm taking
Wow.
my cell phone out and I'm trying to take a picture. Did you ever
Right. Right.
try
Right.
to take a picture when your car is moving? It's not too great.
In the last few
Yeah.
days, I've done
Did
that.
you? See?
Yeah, I get a
Is it a
lot of
license
messages.
plate?
I get a lot of
See?
messages that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's one of the without a doubt signs that they love to give us, license plate. So I
Yeah.
knew he was going to come through. And when I got there, it's funny. If you go to my website at karennoe.com, and you scroll down a little bit, there's a free class with me, Serena, and Sage Dyer, because now we did classes with Humanities Team. We went to
Right.
Omega. We talked together about this whole thing, telling you about this. Okay, so that's karennoe.com. And you scroll down, it says free master class, and you hear the whole thing.
Cool.
But
I'll
now
put a
let's.
link. I'll put a link
There
in
we
the
go.
show notes to your site. Yeah.
And so let's backtrack. It's such a long story, a beautiful
We're
one.
here. We're here for it.
Yeah. So remember, now we retain the same personality as we had when we're here in the physical body. If we were quiet, we're still quiet after we pass. If we're loud, we are loud. And you know Wayne Dyer was loud. So
Yes.
for oh, I didn't get to the appointment yet. Just back, sometimes I get airy fairy. I'm going too far ahead. All right. So I got to the appointment, and as they walked in, it's like Wayne overcame me. Now I'm very shy. I mean, right now it might not seem that I'm shy, but you could, if you meet me in person,
You
I
have a
am.
little shy energy.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I met them and they walked in, and I'm like, oh my God, inside I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. But all of a sudden I said, the first thing they did was they went into the bathroom, and I'm trying to make a good impression, but Wayne is telling him to hurry up. So I said,
Yeah.
oh, no, I can't tell him to hurry up. And I'm like, I knock on the door and I say, I'm really sorry, but um, your dad's coming through, and could I just say what he's saying? They're like, yeah. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. I'm like, oh, and me,
That's
Karen Noe, I'm saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
that's
You
so
know,
great.
so
That's
they
hilarious.
came out. Now his wife Marceline came, Sky, Sage, and Serena. Now again, he has 8 children. They came. 3 of them came from Florida, and
Hmm.
Sage came from Manhattan to New Jersey.
Hmm.
And the first thing, he spoke to each one of them separately and spoke to them differently. Like he spoke to Serena very loudly, and to
Mm,
Sky, he spoke to her very sweet. And they
hmm.
said, this is the way he spoke to us, and that way, in that
Wow.
manner,
Wow.
exactly. And he said things that, nobody knew. And they said in the car, I want him to mention this, this, and this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay. And personal
Right.
things. I share some of them in the book. Um, but one of them I can share because Serena shared it all over Facebook, and she talks about it all the time. But Wayne said to Serena she was pregnant,
Hmm.
and she didn't think she was. And she had a flat belly, all of it. And there's no way that nobody would know.
You
And
would
she
know.
just had a
Yeah.
baby. She just had a baby. So she's like, she tells the story. She goes, I was a little disappointed. Everything was making sense up until that point. Anyway, I said, I know, but that's what he's saying. He's saying you're pregnant, and he showed me the fireworks, the 4th of July, and I don't understand what that means. She goes, okay. So she went home and she took a pregnancy test, and she was indeed in the family way, due on the 4th of July. So this is the
Whoa.
type of thing. I'll share 3 more messages from him, and then we'll go on.
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
keep talking about this, but some of the messages over the next 3 years, they were not, my life was not mine.
Yeah.
Let me
Right.
tell
Right.
you.
Right.
Now, Wayne had me, right? Now it's like I'm hearing him, and it comes as a thought. And we'll talk about this so people can understand how they can receive messages. It comes as a thought. We're expecting to hear a voice.
Yeah.
We're expecting to see an apparition of what they look like, but they're spirit.
Yeah.
So you have to acknowledge the thoughts that just pop in your head for no reason. And it's not your thought. It's just a random, we could
Yeah.
talk about that later. So one of the messages, it's 6 a.m. 6 a.m. And Wayne says, call Tracy now. Call Tracy now. That's his oldest daughter. I'm like, it's 6 o'clock. I feel like I'm schizophrenic at this point. I'm like,
Yeah.
Wayne, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Call her now. I said, oh my Lord.
Wow.
So I texted her and I said, Tracy, I'm so sorry, but I feel your dad. May I call you? And within a second, absolutely,
Of
exclamation,
course. Yeah.
exclamation. And I said, Tracy, and she's crying. I
Yeah.
said, I'm sorry. This is what happened. I said, your dad, before we say anything, your dad is saying, yes, he can hear you, but you can't hear him.
Mm.
She starts to cry, and she said, Karen, I just woke up from a dream. And in the dream, I was yelling at my dad, can't you hear me?
Hmm.
And he said, yes, I could hear you, but you
Wow.
can't hear me.
Wow.
And then another time, one of his sons, Sans, we were emailing each other back and forth with messages. And this was maybe a year later. I went to the bank. I came home, and I look on my computer and one of his old emails just appeared on my screen. Sands. So I said, okay, I guess Wayne wants me to contact Sands. This doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Right.
So I call him and he picks up the phone. He said, "This is incredible." I said, what does this mean?" He said, I'm on a plane. I'm on the plane going from Florida to Maui, and
Hmm.
I'm moving to Maui, and I just asked Dad if this is the right move.
Wow.
Let me know, like right now. Then I heard his dad say, "Live your dream."
Wow.
So this is what I'm talking about. This kind of thing. I'll share one more, and then we'll move on. I mean, I could
Okay.
go on and on.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
Another time now, Serena is not post. Serena is like Wayne, Serena's energy. So I could really pick up on her energy. So again, I'm calling her at one particular. He said, "Call Serena now. Call Serena now." She's not answering. Not answering. So I called Sage. I said, "What is going on? Your dad wants me to contact you now. Something very important is happening at this moment with Serena." She goes, yeah, she's ready to push. She's ready to give birth."
Wow.
And she said, I'm in the room with her. Do you want to talk to her?" And I said, "All right." So put the phone by her ear, and she said, and Wayne says, "Daddy's with you." And she goes, "Oh," and she closes her legs and she goes, "Oh my God." But then she started to cry to understand that her dad was aware of her
Yeah.
giving birth at that moment.
Sure.
There you go. So
Wow.
that's what I experienced. And then after 3 years, he sizzled off a little bit. He's gallivanting. He doesn't want to be limited.
Yeah.
He could go anywhere.
Yeah.
He could
Right.
go to any galaxy or a moon or whatever. And, we
Who
talked about
knows?
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows
There
exactly
you
what his
go.
soul is up to? Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, like yourself, I've just felt very drawn to him and his energy. And one of the great compliments I remember in the early days of doing this podcast before he had passed, I had, well, you may even know them, Samantha and Deb Bowen, Samantha Fay. They do the Psychic Teachers podcast,
Okay.
and years and years ago before he passed, I remember having them on, and one of them, I can't remember which, was like, Brandon, like, you feel very much like a young Wayne Dyer energy to me, and to me that was like a great
Yes, it
compliment
did. Yes.
because yeah, I mean, he's Wayne Dyer, he's so amazing, and his delivery is so powerful, and he's so relatable and likable and
That's
lovable,
like
and
you.
yeah.
It's true. Yes.
So that was a great compliment that I received many years ago. And
Uh-huh.
he was on my, I've had some, like, I just had Neil Donald Walsh on the show. He was very
Okay.
high on my, I want,
Yes. He was on
wish
my
list.
podcast too.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
He was
And
very high on my wish list of
yeah.
people to have on. And
Yeah.
Wayne was in the early days. And then, of course, he
Yeah.
passed. So this is, in a
Yeah.
sense, like the next best thing, getting you who's been
Yes.
had a
And
direct line.
there's so much I'd love to talk to you about. Now, Neil Donald Walsh is in charge of Humanities Team, which I did the master class with the Dyers on.
Ah,
So,
wow.
Humanities Team, if you look online, Humanities Team, Neil Donald Walsh started that
Yeah. Well,
organization. It's about a oneness, and that's
yeah.
what we conscious. And then somehow they found me. It's a
Wow.
long story. I'm not going to get into it,
Wow.
but I'm like, oh, they're talking about my book, and I
Yeah.
contacted
Yeah.
them, and the rest is history. And Neil Donald Walsh is amazing.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I just had, my listeners have heard this story a couple times in the last few weeks because I was so excited about it. I just had my first medium ish experience. I've had a lot of, I get some very intense spiritual breadcrumbs, synchronicity. I used to have a friend who used to, every time he'd see me, he'd be like, "Mr. Synchronicity," because I have a lot of that, and I share a lot of that sort of thing on the show. And,
Yeah.
but I just had my first personal, like, communication from the other side that was validated
Right.
in dramatic fashion. And it was just so exciting and fun for me. So if you'd like to hear, I could share
I
with you
would
real.
love to hear it. Yes.
So lots of synchronicity, a lot of spiritual breadcrumbs, winks from the universe, etc. over the years. And this is the first time I had a dream like 2 weeks ago. And in the dream, my grandmother and grandfather, my mom's parents, were like, one died in the 80s and one died in the 90s. The first psychic event I ever had was with my grandfather the day he died. I had a whole premonition, and he died like 1985, and then it came back. I was like, you got to remember this date. And then all these years later, whole nother story. I think I bumped into either his reincarnation or someone who's very connected to him, and it's been very dramatic and interesting.
Wow.
That's a whole different story. But
Right.
so here I am in the dream state, and it's like, oh, I've got, his name was Joe, and we called her Moo. And Joe and Moo are on the line. I've got them on the, kind of like FaceTime or something. I'm like, I've connected, and we had dialogue. I don't remember a lot of the dialogue other than my grandfather Joe being like, I want to introduce you to my friend Peter Finch, and he's from World War II. Now, my grandfather Joe was at Pearl Harbor when it got bombed.
Oh my gosh.
He was on the Utah, which is still sunk in the harbor. He jumped and swam and survived. His friend standing next to him died. And so in the dream state, it was I woke up out of the dream. You got to remember Peter Finch, World War II. And I'm thinking, could this be his friend that was there next to him on the boat? I don't know, So I got his strength up, half asleep, to write down on my phone, Peter Finch, World War II. And I went back to sleep. And the next day, good thing I did that, because I forgot the dream. And then I grabbed my phone. I'm like, oh yeah, So I go and I search Peter Finch. Is this a real person? First thing that comes up is a famous actor who died in the 70s. He was the first actor to win an Oscar after he died. He died, and a few months later, he won Oscar for Best Picture. And I instantly thought of my son, Bradley, who, are you familiar? Have you ever met or heard of the psychic medium Colby Rebel by any chance?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, so she's relatively well known, and she's a friend. And years ago, my son is 24. When he was 18, I took him to her for a reading on his 18th birthday, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the first time I've ever had a celebrity spirit guide come through. His spirit guide is Charlie Chaplin. He's going to be this he's going to be this huge actor." And da 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 da. Now, he had never acted a day in his life at that point. He had started to take a little interest in it, like, that might be interesting to explore. Now, fast forward 6 years later. He just won Best Actor in an Independent Film in the Los Angeles Film Awards, and he's
my gosh.
everything. Now he's in a lot of smaller productions. He hasn't gotten a big break. Yeah, and he like gets cast in everything he auditions for, pretty much. Nice. He's incredible, and so I instantly think of Bradley. Like, okay, this is a big actor. Maybe we need to watch this film from the 70s that he won an Oscar for, called The Network. And then I'm on his Wikipedia. Next thing down, he was known for being in the Battle of Darwin in World War II as a gunner.
Oh.
And, yeah. And so it's like, okay, he's a real guy. He's an actor. And his two things he's known for is acting and being in this famous battle in World War II. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got real data from the other side,
Absolutely.
So now that next day, I didn't see my son all day. I'm doing whatever. I'm like, oh, I look forward to sharing it with him, the story, when I see him. I'm walking out the door to play tennis, and he texts me right as I'm walking out the door to go meet my friend. Hey, Dad, I just got a last minute audition request for a self-tape, but I got to turn it in within like 2 hours for the cutoff. It's for a World War II film.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, I would not have canceled. I would not have canceled my tennis plans had it been, like, Brad, I'm already walking out the door. My friend's already meeting me there. And so here I'm reading with him, and 10 minutes later, I'm reading opposite him, and he's filming himself. And his character is like a young private from Nebraska. And my character is like, well, since you're from Nebraska, how about I just stand behind you and go moo? In parentheses, is my grandmother who was in the dream.
Oh my gosh.
And so next day he submits a self-tape. Very next day he hears back. They love him. 2 days after that, he's on. If you go to my Facebook, you'll see a picture of him in the trenches as a gunner in this, pilot kind of show for. They're wanting to do a full show where it highlights a different Medal of Honor story every episode. So it's a true story. And so anyway, he filmed it within days. And that was my first time receiving information from the other side that, that detail.
That's what I call without a doubt sign. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. I mean, with the moo in it for like a sprinkle on top.
You told your son about all of this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I share all the stuff. Like some of the, I've shared this story a few times just in the last few weeks on the show. So
amazing.
So yeah, that was really exciting and cool. So we'll see. Maybe that's the role that like kind of gets him seen to in because right
Yeah.
now it's been a lot of student films and shorts and just getting lots of experience. He hasn't had like a bigger role yet.
Not yet.
Not yet,
He's
but
going to get out there. You'll see.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I feel it pretty strongly for him. He's definitely
I know it.
passionate.
I don't feel, you know what? Know it without a doubt because it's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah. So wow. So I love starting out with some without a doubt signs.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting segue because here you of course, this is your work and life work, and here I am sharing like, oh, this happened to me,
Hmm.
as well. And you said it. Everyone has this ability to
Yeah.
some degree. How can those listening who are like, I want to have that experience, I want to connect with deceased loved ones or angels, or what kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, this is the best part. Let's go back a little bit. I taught the Dyers how to do it. Now they don't need me anymore. And I feel wonderful about that because they're doing
Mm,
it themselves. And this is
wow.
what I tell the audience too, is the number one thing. There's maybe a few things we could go over. One, we're expecting to hear a voice or
Hmm.
to see an apparition, as I said before, but they speak to us telepathically
Yeah.
as thoughts that just pop in your head for no reason.
Right.
So notice the thoughts that pop in your head. How do you tell the difference between your thoughts and theirs? Your thoughts will have an originating thought,
Hmm.
right? That
Hmm.
will trigger another thought. Say you see a picture of your grandma that triggers a thought that's you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But if you're driving and then all of a
Out of
sudden
nowhere.
what your grandma said to you 10 years ago, whatever, it pops in your head, pay attention to that. So that's number one. Number two, I would say ask them to give you a without a doubt sign. You have to
Yeah.
ask them sometimes. Sometimes they just do it, and sometimes they need to be asked. So you say, give me a sign to let me know that you're with me. Make it a without a doubt sign. Now, some
Yeah.
of these, do you want to talk about some of these signs? Would
Yeah.
be
Please. Yeah.
they love to come through as a bird, a ladybug, a dragonfly, a butterfly to let us know they're with us. But the bird, the animal, whatever it is, will do something that it normally does not do.
Like Wayne with landing on him in the cover of his, what is it?
The
Power of
butterfly.
Intentions. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yes.
on the cover of his book.
Yes, exactly. Something like that. And it's common and that's, I love hearing stories from people who've received these signs. One of these signs is my friend Marion. Now, as I said before, if you were loud here, you're still loud. She was loud when she was here on the physical plane, and then she passed.
Hmm.
And I would suggest for people to do this too. I wrote, believe it or not, I wrote her a letter after she passed. There's a reason for this madness. And in the letter, I said how much I loved her
Hmm.
and why. And I said, give me a without a doubt sign to let me know that you're aware of what I'm saying here in this letter.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. A few days later, I was walking down my stairs to put some bills in the mailbox. And as I'm walking down the stairs, there was a bird screaming at the top of its lungs in my driveway.
Hmm.
All right. So I'm looking at the bird and I'm not quite sure. And I said, Marion, is that you? Marion? And it's going, wow, like that. I mean, you can't not pay attention to that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. And I said, okay. Matt, let me know if it's you. And I walked to the mailbox
Hmm.
and the bird, now birds don't do this, followed me to the mailbox.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then looked at me and continued to scream, wow. My God, Marion, I love you so much. And I am crying and I'm crying. And
Oh.
I turn around and my neighbor saw the whole thing and I thought she thought I was crazy.
Right, right.
I didn't care. I had my cell phone in my pocket and I told my son to come outside because Marion was there. I said,
Mm.
Tim, come outside. Marion's here. And he said, huh? I said, just come outside. And he witnessed the whole thing. But the
Oh.
best part was a few days after that, a mutual friend of ours, Carol, she emailed me and said, you're not going to believe what Marion did to her. And I said, okay, we're going to compare notes. What did she do to you?
Yeah.
And she said, well, Karen, I just painted my kitchen and I opened up the sliding glass door and a bird flew in my kitchen, pooped all over my walls, and then flew out. And she knew because Marion was a practical joker. She knew it
Uh-huh.
was Marion. And she said, thanks, Marion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's been coming through crazy.
What a shitty sign.
She's been doing that. over and over throughout the years. So that's just one. I mean, I don't know how many signs you want me to talk about because we have a limited. I could give you maybe three more types of without a doubt signs,
Sure, please.
but it could go. We could go on and on. Well, as we said before, they love to come to us in dreams.
Yeah.
Now they need to wake us up after the dream so that we remember it. So what I would suggest, to ask your loved ones to come to you in a dream and to wake you up after the dream so you remember it,
Yeah.
or else you'll sleep the whole night and you won't.
Yeah.
There's two different types of dreams from our loved ones. One is a true visitation, as you had.
Mm-hmm.
That was a true visitation in a dream, and the other one is a dream from your subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
which be something that you're trying to resolve.
Yeah. Yeah.
How they passed, you see them in a casket, they're mad at you. That's not them.
Yeah.
They don't come to you and they're not angry. They don't want to be remembered in a casket. They continue. They're at peace. They're at love. Sometimes they come through younger than what they were if they were older. Usually they like the age 35. I don't know why.
Hmm.
They come at a good, in a good part of their life. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they don't, but you'll know without a doubt that they were with you. I'll give you another example. I know 2 minutes ago I was saying how don't expect to hear an audible voice, but yet after my mom passed,
Mm-hmm.
I said to her, Mom, I would love to hear your voice one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So after work one day, I went home. I was exhausted and I took a nap and I had a dream,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote, which was a true visitation without a doubt. And in the dream, I walked into a crowded room and my mother's voice came over the loudspeaker and she said, I have an important announcement. I
Whoa.
have an important announcement. I am okay and I love you.
Oh.
And I
Oh.
said, Mom, I love you so much. I said, Who are you with? And she said something that I didn't recognize. So I said, Could you say it again? So I would tell our listeners, if you don't understand what they're saying, say it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she said, Nanny, who is her mom.
Mm.
And with that, the phone rang, woke me up. I was able to remember the dream and I felt like I won the lottery.
Wow.
It was the most incredible experience. I knew without a doubt it was her.
Wow.
No question about it. You knew, right?
Yeah.
Without a doubt it was, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So all we need to do is to ask them to come and then be patient and wait, and they'll
Yeah.
come when you least expect it.
Right.
Right?
Right. Wow. Yeah,
I-
that is it's such a obviously being left behind by someone that you love is it's hardest for those left behind. It seems from
yeah.
the messages we do get from across the veil. You know, what pops to mind right now in this moment is one time years back, I had the chance to speak to a medium with some of my family. My brother had a partner who actually she had my mother's birthday, and there's other
Wow.
synchronicities around it, but she committed suicide,
Oh,
and it really upset my brother. Really, it was really challenging for him because it was sort of I guess prompted by their breakup, and he had a lot of guilt, and and when we connected with her across the veil through a medium, we asked, "Why did you do it?" And her answer was really interesting. She said, "It was my turn to save him."
wow.
Yeah, and I think, okay, well, how could she have, what is it? Let me try and interpret that. And it's like, well, because of that, my brother moved to, from California to Virginia, after the shock of it, just to go be with our parents and just like recover, and which led to him, starting a job, which led to him and I starting a business together from that job, which led
Wow.
to us having our first success with like an fastest growing private company and hundreds of employees. And, it really altered both of our lives. Had he not left California to go, even today, it's like the ripples are dramatically felt from that. So,
Amazing.
but I thought of that. I think of that often because it's just like what an interesting sort of concept of it's like somehow in service. And I think it just goes to show, our judgment around, you know, tragedy or what have you. There's more to the story maybe than we are able to see or perceive.
Absolutely, because this life is not all there is.
Yeah, right.
If you understand, and Wayne Dyer said this often, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the other way around. And the
Right.
energy of who we are continues after the physical body dies,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so with that said and done, when somebody passes, that's not it.
Yeah. Right.
We think the living loved ones are the ones who are suffering. It's not those who have left the
Right.
body.
Right. Right. Have
So,
you had any experience? Wasn't one of your books? Doesn't it reference some of? I'm sure you're familiar with Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls. Are you familiar with these
yes,
books?
a long time ago. Could you remind me what
Michael
it was?
Newton is the author, and it was he basically takes people through hypnosis into
Yes,
past lives, and
right.
then from there, okay, now you passed in that life. Now what? Now what? And he
Oh, in
documents
between lives. Was
life
it in
between lives.
between?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I think those books are really, I mean, over decades, he, put however many hundreds, thousands of people through this process and just documenting what they saw, experience, perspectives from the other side were. And I find those books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, really fascinating because you get a glimpse, supposedly into what it's like for the spirit on the other side and
Absolutely.
how they're trying to communicate with us and the techniques that they use and how the soul families work and are structured. And it's yeah, really fascinating. So I'm curious if you've had any sort of glimpsing in your, psychic, intuitive, medium.
Between lives,
Yeah.
that type of thing. I could only say from the all the many people who've come to see me that when the deceased loved one, I don't even like to use that word, when they come through, they are always in a state of complete bliss and they talk about where they are and everything.
Yeah.
And it's just the most incredible experience. People worry about them, even someone who commits suicide, and
Yep. Yep.
there's no need to worry.
Yeah.
The only thing, what happens is we go through a life review
Yeah.
where we're able to see and feel how we've affected other people through the other person's eyes, the living loved one's eyes,
Yep.
as if we are that other person. It doesn't mean throughout eternity we're going to suffer because
Yep.
we
Yep.
did this.
Yep.
It's just that, oh, ow, I shouldn't have done that. And
Yep.
oftentimes in the readings, they say, I shouldn't have hit you over the head with a mirror.
Yep.
They see how that affected you and so forth. But other than that, it's just about, and by the way, Raymond Moody, who've written,
Yeah. Yeah. I recognize that name.
he's written books about past life experiences way back.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, no, not past life
Is he
experience.
future lives?
No, you know what? After you leave the physical, people who died had ah, near-death experiences. Near-death
Right. Right.
experiences.
Right.
People who have been declared clinically dead,
Yep. Right.
and then they come back to life to talk about what they've experienced. And he, way back in 20 years ago, he had bestsellers. Well, he has another book out now, and I'm going to interview him on the Angel Quest show next month. I'll give
Cool.
you the contact
Oh, that'd be
information.
great. Yeah, I'd love
Yeah,
to have
him
him on.
and Paul Perry, and they talk about, you've left the physical body, and then they're clinically dead for. You remember Danny and Brinkley? You're too young, but there was
Mm-hmm.
Danny and Brinkley who was clinically dead, and he came back and talked about he saw that he was a bully, and after he came back to life, he tried to change who he was because he saw how he affected everybody. Anyway,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
there's
Yeah,
a lot of books about near-death experiences. So
those are fast. I think those are some of the best evidence, as well, because we actually get a report back from someone who, and you see the consistency a lot of times in the stories is like, okay, this is interesting that thousands of people are having the life review and the similar feelings of bliss and white light. And, it's like, yeah, it's
it's
really
incredible.
fascinating.
And they were like all of these people were declared clinically dead for a
Mm-hmm.
period of time.
Mm,
And they came back a different person,
yeah. Yeah.
more evolved, more psychic, and so forth. So
Right, 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 right.
incredible.
I'm curious. Um, I'm curious about your, using your gifts and perception regarding past lives or future lives. Or are you ever shown any of that information?
Sometimes I am. Most of the time, when they come to see me, they want to discuss, talk to the deceased loved one,
Yeah.
and they talk about this present life. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, sometimes something comes through with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Myself included, I many years ago, before I even had this experience with the light, I had a past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning how to do past life regressions on people, and they needed a person, a volunteer. So I said, I'll do it. Even though I was shy, I went up in front of the room, and it was the most incredible thing because I'm afraid of water. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw myself. He said, Karen, Karen. And I wouldn't answer. And he said, Karen. I said, my name is Isabel. I wouldn't answer
Wow.
to Karen. And I jumped off the boat during the Vikings, the time of the Vikings and so forth.
Wow.
I came back and I was not afraid of water anymore. So
Wow.
incredible, right?
That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite names.
Isabel?
Isabel. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful name.
It is.
Yeah. Um, wow. What a trip. So that by reliving that experience, in a sense, you were able to heal your fear of water.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not thrilled with going into the water after all these years of being afraid. But right after that, I was able to go in and I'm like, huh, the fear is gone. I'm just not excited to be,
Yeah.
but that's good. That phobia was gone.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Right. Yeah. My mother has a lot of fear of water, and I always think like, I've definitely must be something there. That.
That's life. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Well, wow, I can't believe we've already been talking close to an hour, not quite there.
Yeah.
You know, in all your experiences, what are some of your biggest takeaways or shares that come to mind when I ask you, like, if you could share anything with the audience to help them on their journey, what comes up for you?
Number one, that this life is not all there is, and it's not. Don't be afraid of dying. I wouldn't even like to use that. I don't like to use that word, dying. And your loved one,
It's birth into non-physical, right?
even the physical body. That's
Yeah.
it. Moving on, transitioning, to a different level of consciousness. But I often tell people after, as we discussed before, we go through that life review after we die. Why do we have to wait until then to
Yeah.
go through a life review?
Right.
Why don't we try to see each and every day how we're affecting each person through
Mm.
their eyes? We might not agree
Yeah.
with what they're doing, but
Yeah.
try to understand through their eyes why they do what they do
Yeah.
and forgive those who, this is a life review, who harmed us. Because
Hmm.
as Wayne would say, it's not the snake bite that kills us, it's the venom
Yeah.
that's left behind.
Yeah. Right.
Ask forgiveness from those who we have hurt
Yeah.
right now. Don't wait. Treat ourselves with the respect that we deserve because we are just as important as everyone else.
Mm.
And in so doing, I talk about this in my book, Through the Eyes of Another.
Hmm.
If we do that, we will be able to create peace in our lives right here and now and in the lives of those around us. And
Yeah.
it won't be too late after we pass and we'll say, I should have, could have, would have. You live life differently then,
Yeah.
and you're in a state of complete love and
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really a great share. Like, that perspective of let's do the life review now. And how can you be as empathetic and, everyone is acting rational based off of their view of the world.
Absolutely.
And it's coming through, the
Mhm.
filter of their own limited understanding. If it's not, what you would view as up to par, or, kind or dark or whatever it is, it's coming through their lens, their own trauma, their own. It's like, they're hurting if they're doing something that's really, not kind or good from your perspective. It's because they're hurting. And it's I do personally believe, like, my favorite book of all time is, I asked Neil Donald Walsh this. I was like, "Hey, guess what my favorite book is of yours?" And he's written so many books,
The
and
first one?
I forget which one he guessed, and it's like, nope, it's The Little Soul in the Sun, which is
Oh, I
my
know.
children's book, and I believe that is the best way to sum up what's happening here.
Mhm.
And it's all, of course, centers around forgiveness and understanding that, you know, that's how I believe, break the karmic cycle, is by understanding, like, otherwise we just continue tit for tat, in perpetuity until someone gets off the karmic wheel by understanding like that forgiveness is the gift to for all of us.
Absolutely. And that book is a children's book.
Yeah,
So it's a
right.
great way to explain to children about all these
Yeah, I
concepts.
always say every child from 9 to 99 should have this book.
Yes. I had five. I always have like five of them. It's funny you said that. And I just give them to
That's funny. So you resonate with it as much as me. If you're doing
yes.
I've gifted it a bunch of times too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, wow. So is there any exercises that you can share that will help people, on their path to tapping into their intuition,
Yeah.
manifesting? I know you've got a book. Your next book is all about thoughts creating reality, and that, of course, is a deep subject that everyone's interested in. And so, yeah, any shares around that?
Okay, so those are two different questions, but
Yeah,
I'll say one thing. The most important thing, if people want to connect with their loved ones, if they want to become more intuitive, you have to raise your vibration.
mm,
So it's more on par with God within you. In
mm.
other words, which is only love and peace. And we all have that energy with us. Some people don't like to call it God, they'll call it source, whatever you
Higher
want to call
self,
it,
the
creator,
universe,
right,
consciousness.
right, universe. But when you tap into who you really are, which is only love and peace, that's when the intuitive hits come. That's when you're more on par with the energy of those who've passed, with the angels, with God,
Yeah,
and so forth. Because it's like if you're angry, and upset, we all get angry and we all do things. But when you're not on par with the energy of who they are,
yeah,
it's like tuning into 1300 AM,
yeah,
but you want 3200 FM.
yeah.
You won't be able to hear them.
Right.
So do things such as practice forgiveness, become more compassionate, lots of things that we could do with
Yeah,
that. And also meditate, because meditating is listening.
yeah,
Praying is talking to God and the angels, but meditating is listening.
yeah.
And in any relationship, we need to listen as well as to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, we are transmitters and receivers, all rolled into one, I would say. And we do a lot of transmitting, and we probably be served well to get into the receptive state more, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I usually towards the end, like at this point in the soul share, I always ask for stories of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal stories, and I feel like we've shared a bunch already. So
Yeah.
I will definitely let you off the hook. But I don't know if there's any other inspired or inspiring stories that come to mind that you would care to share.
Well, a little bit about the manifestation, what
Mm-hmm.
we were saying before. What's really important that we're vibrational beings, and whatever we're thinking and feeling, we're creating in our lives. Sometimes we don't do it. Most times, people do it by default. You don't create on purpose, but whatever you
Unconsciously,
are,
yeah,
yeah. So you're attracting whatever energy you are. So if you're, say, an angry person a lot, you'll create angry people in your life. So the thing to do is to try to be, you know,
yeah,
compassionate and forgiving and so forth, and you'll create that. I have stories, but we don't have time, but incredible stories when people change their thoughts. It's not just the thoughts, it's the feeling.
yeah.
And we'll say again what Wayne would say, it's assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. If
Mm-hmm.
you could do that, you could create amazing miracles in your life. And there's nothing you can't do,
Yeah,
including healing from cancer,
yeah,
finding the perfect partner or the perfect job,
yeah,
and so much more.
yeah. Yeah, he would also say if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right?
There you go. That's right. One of his most famous lines.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, this has been amazing, Karen. Thank you so much for all your wisdom and insights. And what is the best way for people to connect with you? Who we mentioned the website earlier. Is that the best
Yeah.
one
So
there?
you go to my website or find me on social media. It's under Karen Noe. That's Noe,
Mm-hmm.
author. And so it's Karen Noe, author on Instagram, on Facebook, and so forth. And you could connect with me there.
Excellent. Well, I do have one final question for you. It is my cliche closer, and it is this. You're in I started on my opener. Hold on. Not in an elevator. No, you already went through the elevator. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Karen Noe?
It's the same as the other question you asked me, to spread the love that you are.
Yeah,
You are a being of love and light, and to spread the light wherever you go.
indeed. Well, thank you for being a light on this show today. It's been such a pleasure and an honor. And yeah, thank all of you for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode. Until next time, journey well.
I love you so, 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 so much. I love you so, so, so